So I'm logged in here as a student slash course rep. So for every course rep, they're a student and they'll have the exact same privileges as a student. A course rep will have some slightly additional privileges. So I'm just going to use one account and I can show you how the student will raise the feedback and how a rep can escalate it. So what you see here is a feedback board. A feedback board is a public space that's accessible to students, staff, and course reps in a particular area of the university. So in this case, in this example, it's Department of Sociology. And to give you an idea of the level of access, you could have, 6 programs of about, obviously 3 years each, if they're undergrads, postgrad being a year, and maybe about 100 students in each program. So you could look at between, say, 500 to 1,000 students for a particular board. We always recommend having something above 700 students, just so that you have a critical mass and you get a higher level of engagement. And as you'll see when you access your account on Unitu, your boards will be structured in a way where there are a number of programs under those boards. The board is split into 2 main sections: private feedback and public. So yes, students, staff, and reps in a particular area, in this case, Department of Social, will have access to the exact same board, but this area is private, and I'll show you what it looks like to a staff in a moment. For a student and a rep, they can access this 100% fine. For staff members, it's semi-accessible. So right now, I'm going to show you how a rep or a student can create feedback. So it's really simple. They can do this on the mobile. They can do this on the web. Simply just adding feedback into 4 category types: a praise, an issue, a question, or an idea. So in this case, I'm going to raise an idea. I'm going to say alumni students to be guest speakers. And as a rep, I might have actually had a conversation with a student in the cafeteria, and they might have mentioned, oh, wouldn't it be great if alumni students would come in and share their experience? And that rep, she might come onto Unitu and say, look, actually, I'm going to raise this on Unitu to gather the feedback from other students if they feel the same way. They can add a description. And what we've done this year is focus on getting students and reps to be more solution focused and positive in their way of creating feedback. So you'll see when a student can create feedback, they are asked to propose an action plan when they present an idea, or if it's an issue, they are asked to suggest a solution. This is a way for them, and this required field, and this is a way for them to actually stop and think about their feedback. Because in the past, when you have just a description, it's very easy for a student to just literally feel like, I have this rant, I have this concern, get it off my chest, and hopefully someone will deal with it. In this way, we want students to be a lot more solution focused. So let's go back to the idea. I propose an action plan, and then I can relate it to a course, or if it's something more general, I can say it's not specific to a course. And then I have the option to post anonymously. So this is one of the key things that I was mentioning about students who feel resistant to give feedback with their identity associated. So they can post anonymously here. They can also comment anonymously, and I'll show you in a moment how they can do that. It's really important that they're also aware that anything that's written in this area of the platform and is escalated by the reps can actually be seen from staff. So it's important to make sure that they are not violating the content policy. So if I click add feedback, it's now added to the private area of the feedback board. Now, if I move over to a staff account, which you can see here, and I refresh the page, I can see there's an idea that's been created. If it's associated with the course, in this case, it's not associated with the course, but if it was, it would say the course name. I can't see the title. In this case, a student and a rep can see the title, but a staff member cannot. I can see it was a year 1 student who's created the post. I can click on the feedback. I can see the number of votes and comments and the expected response time for a rep to act upon it. And I'll explain in a little moment what that means. For a student, they'll get a notification. They can log onto their account and they can then see the votes. They can vote themselves. They can comment. They can comment anonymously if they wish. They can scroll down. They can see how many students have viewed it as well. So so before I actually go into escalating for my rep, a couple of reasons of why we've made this area semi-accessible to staff members. it's really an opportunity for the students and the reps to work together on their feedback before presenting it to staff. And what do I mean by work together? So a couple of things here. First, it's important for the reps, and we do this through our training, to make the feedback as representative as possible. So they have a few ways. One of the ways they can do this is by using the boost functionality, where they can send out an email to the students of why they should jump onto this feedback and vote, so they can collect as much sentiment from the students. They can share this feedback to students on their Facebook groups, on their WhatsApp groups, a number of methods they can, but the goal for them is to make the feedback as representative as possible. The other responsibility that they have is to moderate the feedback. So they need to ensure that the feedback doesn't violate any of the content policies, and none of the comments that's written by students is inappropriate. If it is, they have the ability to report and remove any content before escalating it forward. The third thing of why we created this area is to act as a filtering system. What do I mean by that? Essentially, there are queries that students add onto Unitu that actually can be answered or addressed by students themselves, because reps have more information by being in meetings than other students have, and they may know, or other students may know about things that other students haven't listened to or read and are able to answer that. So we give the ability for reps to close feedback if they wish. Or if they feel like the author of the post is happy with the answer. As staff members, you can see this. You can see if it's closed or not. So these are all closed by rep. So for every 5 feedback posts that's created, there could be 1 or 2 of them being escalated into the public. So this helps staff to really see only feedback that's representative, that's something that can't be solved by students themselves, and it's professional, it's constructive, and there's no inappropriate content. So let's say, for example, this feedback is something that students want to move forward, and it can't be resolved by the students themselves, then the rep can move it forward. Now, before I do this, there's something really important for staff and reps, that they have an expected response date to respond to that feedback. This is very much adjustable, and this is seen in our guidelines. If you scroll down on your guideline sections, when you have your account, you'll see the course rep response time and the staff response time, what's expected. Why have we created this? Well, in previous years, what we've seen from students is there's an expectation that staff and reps should respond almost immediately to their concern. Now that we live in the digital era of WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and people can see when someone's viewed their messages, what happens is that they are expecting a response within at least the same day. This is definitely not possible in institutions when resources can be limited, or the structure doesn't allow for that. So what we've done here is provided staff the ability to actually lengthen the days that they feel is most adequate for them to actually respond to the students, and the same for the reps. And this becomes very obvious to the students. Here they can see the expected response date. They can also see it in the right here. So you can expect an update from course reps by this date. And we've introduced this functionality this year, and we've actually seen the students understand and feel this. And when it goes past the expected response date, they actually then message the reps and say, hey, we see that there's 20 votes here. There's a number of comments, and it's gone past the expected response dates. Can you move it forward? So this adds a level of accountability to the reps to actually do their job. And if they don't, then it's very clear to the students and the staff that they're not. And this is one of the ways that we aim to address the high variance of reps, the ones who are really engaged and ones who are not. And what we've also done is encouraged reps who are not representing. So for example, if this is an issue to do with criminology in Department of Sociology, and I'm a sociology rep, what we suggest to reps is that if it goes past the expected date, response date, then we allow or encourage the reps from other programs to actually move it forward if it has more than 5 votes and a few comments, and that the students are asking for it to be responded to, escalated. So this again is a way for us to address the challenge that, offline, if a rep is not turning up to a meeting, they're not actually representing their cohort. On Unitu, actually, the reps are working as a team, and if there's a rep who's not engaged on Unitu, other reps can escalate other programs' feedback as long as it's gone past the expected response date and it has a number of votes that they can move forward. So this is one way for you as staff members to hear the voice of the students, even if some of the reps are not engaging. So let's move it forward. So this is me now moving the feedback over to the open column. So it's very, very simple. Click and so click, drag and drop over into the open column. This pop-up will only come up if the feedback has 0 votes and 0 comments. So, and here are a number of ways where they can make the feedback representative. But in this case, I'm just going to click continue. Now the feedback is in the public area. That's when you as staff members will be notified. Now, how and who, which staff members will be notified really depends on how you organize your team, your departmental teams on using the boards. So you can have as many staff members as you want. You can have specific roles on Unitu who are typically responsible for dealing with student feedback. One of the best ways or one of the best kind of case studies that we have when it comes to engagement is when a department or a feedback board has one designated member to triage feedback. And we call this person a board admin. Their responsibility may not be a program lead or, a program coordinator. Their responsibility may be just to be an administrator or to be part of the student liaison committees with the reps. But their goal here is to triage the feedback. And when you add a board admin, and it's clear to the student staff who the board admins are, their responsibility is essentially to assign the feedback to the relevant people. And when you have a board admin or you have board admins, so you can have multiple, they will be the only ones who are notified by email. So this ensures that other staff members are only receiving information that is relevant to them, and the people who are designated the board admins will only receive information, notifications when feedback is moved into the open column. So this acts like a streamlined way to communicate to the right people at the right time about concerns that they should be addressing. So if I refresh the page as a staff member, I can now see this feedback in the open column. I can click on the feedback. I can see how many students have voted. I can now respond to the feedback. So this is the first action, if you like, on responding to feedback. So the first one is a comment. So if I add a comment, so thank you, and then explain, what's the next steps, what you're gonna do, click send comment. So that's the first way to respond to a student, is through a comment. Very simple, very easy, acknowledging their feedback and then explaining that what's the next step for you to take action on it. It's really important that you do comment to the students once you've seen their feedback, at least within the expected response date. The reason being is because they can see which staff members have seen their feedback. And it's not a great feeling when a student and a bunch of students have created a feedback, they voted, they've commented on it, and a staff member has seen their feedback and they haven't responded in the expected response date. It really sends a signal to the students that actually, wait a minute, I don't think the staff members actually care about what my concerns are because they've seen my feedback and they haven't responded. So it's really simple, very easy just to say and acknowledge their feedback and then internally work together on what to do. Just a bit of detail about the comments. So when you add a comment, it's only the author of the post, people who have voted and people who have commented, that will get a notification. If you add it as an update, which is enabled by default, 2 things happen. The first is all students, if it's a general feedback, all students on the board. If it's a specific course related feedback, only the students on the course year 1, year 2, and year 3 will get an email notification. In addition to that, if you add it as an update, it also changes the expected response date. So if it says here, if enabled, the response date will reset to the agreed time based on the guidelines. So if it gets to the 5th of December and you add it as an update, it will extend to another X many days to what you've agreed. So in this case, it will be another 5 days. So that's important to know. Also, when you add an update, it stays in the comment thread here. So it's not losing the conversation, but also it acts as a kind of a history of what the update staff members are providing to the student. So if the student is non-active or a student hasn't been using the platform for a really long time and they come in and there's several updates about a feedback that they're concerned about, they can click on it and they can see all the updates from the staff without having to go through all the entire comment thread. So that's 2 ways to respond to student feedback. The third way, sorry, is to do the same thing as a rep, drag and drop into progress. So Really, really, really simple, couple of seconds to do, and it immediately notifies students that something is happening with their feedback, their voice is being listened to, it's being acknowledged, and staff have decided to take action on that feedback. Once you move into progress, Unitu will ask for two pieces of information. The first is an NSS category. So I'm sure we're all familiar with the NSS, but to give you a bit of context of why we've created this functionality, it's a method for you to be able to curate reports around what kind of feedback is being created by students that's related to the different NSS categories. So for example, if you have 10 pieces of feedback, let's say 6 of them are issues, and they all relate to assessment and feedback, then you can dig deep and find out why. So one of the things that we find troubling with the NSS is that one, it tells you at the end of the year what went well, what didn't, in terms of percentages, but it really doesn't give you a strong enough detail on understanding the context, why, what students are feeling, how are they feeling about it. With Unitu, our goal is for you to, one, be much more proactive about addressing the concerns that students are having that are related to NSS categories. And in addition, once you know it way before the NSS results are out, you can actually make those changes now so that students are not feeling hard done by or negative when it comes to writing the NSS survey of what they feel negative about. So it gives you a real insight into potential results of the NSS, but also allowing you to actually change things now rather than waiting till the end of the year. So I'm going to add this as learning community since it's to do with about alumni students. The second thing Unitu asks you to do is to assign the feedback to the relevant person. So if you are a board admin, or even if you're not, but you know this feedback should be better assigned to somebody else, you can click on the assignee list and you can find the right staff member. Now that by default, every staff member who creates an account has to add a title, you will see the title of every staff member. So, most of them you probably will know, but there may be some staff members you've never heard the name of, you don't know, but you can see their title. And let's say, for example, the feedback that's been created is to do with library, but you've never met anyone or you don't know anyone on the board who is from library, but you can see their title is to be with library. You might feel they're better assigned to deal with it. So I'm going to click head in department, and then you can add a private message to that staff member. And this message will only be seen by Francis Banks in his email through the email notification. So I'm going to click ... click update, and now it's added to the progress column. Students are aware that something is happening with their feedback through a notification. They can log in, they can visibly see that their feedback is being moved into progress. Francis Banks has now been notified that he is assigned the feedback, and the conversations can continue. Now with the feedback, it could take some time for this feedback to be dealt with, or it could be something that can be dealt with relatively quickly, or it could be something that can actually lead to a change, such as timetable, which is a recurrent concern that students have every single year. But if you feel like this time to be addressed, you can move it into the close column and then explain to the students how it was resolved. With Unitu, what we're doing now is looking at ways to make the changes that are made to the student experience based on student feedback much more visible and transparent. One of the ways we're doing this is through our functionality called Together We Changed. And a first iteration of this feature is actually categorizing the feedback that's led to change by actually clicking this box here. So if something was changed and a workshop has been created for alumni students to present to current students, you can write that, and then this is now categorized as a feedback that's actually led to change as a result of students giving this feedback. So this is a great way to allow students to see the impact of their voice. And on a metrics basis, it really targets the 3 questions in the NSS around student voice, which is students feel they have an opportunity to give feedback, students can see that staff value their feedback, and most importantly, that students can see the impact of their feedback or changes made as a result of their feedback. So this is one feature that we're focusing on really building out as we see staff and students use it. So if I click close feedback, it will now indicate that there's a change been made by going over here to see this icon. In 90 days, every feedback that's been closed will automatically be archived, which you can click here and you can see the archive functionality if you scroll down. just here. Apologies for the background noise. I can't control, please. But hopefully it's not too disturbing. So now that the feedback is now closed, students will all be notified and essentially aware of how their feedback has led to change, if it has actually led to any change. So this is the process of students giving feedback, reps aiming to make it representative, and then escalating it to staff, and then staff being able to show students visibly how their feedback can be acted upon.